This is The Refuge Project.
Welcome to The Refuge Project. The Refuge Project is a place that we can have meaningful conversation in a safe place. And
Absolutely.
Here we are, very safely.
Very safe.
Speaking of safe,
Meaningful.
I got one of the calls as a parent that you never want to get.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so
hear the
Saturday,
details.
about 8 o'clock, went to dinner, got back home.
You sure he wants you to tell this?
Too bad he shouldn't have been doing what he was doing.
Okay, go ahead.
Got settled in about 8 o'clock and got the phone call from my son that they had been in an accident. And he goes, Dad, you can tell that he was just like, scattered brain, doesn't really
Doesn't know what to do.
don't know what to do, don't really know what happened. He says, I think we flipped the car off the bridge. And I was just like,
so he calls you, say, hey, what's going on? He says, Dad, I think we flipped the car off the bridge.
yeah. I was just like, okay. He goes, but we're okay. We're okay. What happened was he hit the guardrail on the bridge and they spun.
What bridge you talking about?
So when you come off of if you're coming from LaPorte to Baytown on the Fred Hartman, so right when you hit that curve going around to Missouri, the freeway curves right there, they were going too fast.
Yeah.
And there was two cars of teenagers. They wasn't racing, but they was behind each other. And they told the cop, one kid told the cop they were doing 80, so I'm thinking around 90.
90 at least.
Yeah,
At least.
And one spun out of control. The one
Speed limit's 60 there,
Yeah.
by the way.
One spun out of control. The other one weaved and hit another car. And
So there's 3 cars?
there was 4 cars total in the accident. 2 of them was the friends. When the one swerved, it missed the car that my son was in, hit another car. And then another car came through and hit kind of like wreckage and popped tires and stuff.
So did one of them end up on the feeder or something? Like, why did he think he flew over the bridge?
Because he didn't know where he was at, I guess. I think he was just...
So when he called you, was he like in the car? Is he standing next to the car?
He just got out of the car.
Okay.
So he found his phone and then called me immediately.
Gotcha. There's no cops or anything yet.
No
He's
cops there,
just-
yeah. His principal showed up out of nowhere.
His principal.
Yeah, his principal was just like behind him.
He's
with
like,
all
Dad, I
of it
think we
happening.
flipped the car and I got detention.
So shout out to Mr. Murphy for getting
Mr.
there.
Murphy.
And, holding it down for all the parents until we got there, you know? And then the other thing...
You imagine you're the principal, you just driving by, go, I think that's my students in an
here's
upside down car.
7 of your students just sitting there, yeah.
Goodness. Well,
And
that's
then-
cool, though, that he stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the band director's son was with him.
So, Dad, the car flipped, I got detention, and I can't march in the game next week.
Oh, man. So they're banged up, One kid went to the hospital. He's got a pretty severe concussion, the driver of the one car. And Luke has got a pretty severe whiplash along with the rest of them, bruises and from seat belts. And pretty nasty deal, man. But shout out to Honda Civic. They built a good car.
Shout out to the...
No sponsor.
You don't think we're going to get sponsored by Honda?
I mean,
Those Japanese, man, they really do it.
right after this, man.
Yeah.
Y'all call me. Y'all got my number.
Yeah, David showed me a picture on Sunday. I see him in the sound booth, and he's looking all tired and all. And I say, hey, how you doing? And he's like, dealing with this all week. Slides his phone over, and it's got this car like on fire, looking just distressed.
It was terrible.
Jeez,
It
man.
was terrible. Yeah,
But he's okay.
He's there. Everybody's okay. There's just, even today that he can barely move his neck and stuff. But
Yeah.
he's good.
That's
He'll be
like the
all right.
same spot that I did a 360 on the freeway, except
Really?
going the other way.
Yeah, that curve right there. If you go too fast,
Yeah,
Honda
I was
Civic-
going like
Honda Civics can't do 190.
I was in a Ford Ranger.
Yeah,
Did
well,
that.
that's
But I was going like 55,
Was it raining?
maybe 50. It was raining a lot,
Yeah,
and
the
I had
Ford
bad
Rangers tend
tires.
to.
I had horrible tires at the time. I had my tires were so bad. I knew anytime it rained the slightest bit and I hit just the tiniest little puddle,
Oh, yeah.
I would hydroplane. But I knew it. But I was still too cheap to change my tires because I was like 16 or whatever, 17.
It was way more important things. Than
Yeah,
tires.
I was like, dude, I can't spend $200 on some tires. And so I would see, I'd be driving and I'd see a puddle up there. I go, okay, I'm gonna hydroplane. I got really good at hydroplaning, which is
I'm gonna steer through it, baby.
yeah. So I know, okay, it's gonna make me slide this direction, so I'll hit it like this, and I got pretty good at it, which was actually bad because it made me put off changing the tires. And yeah, I ended up. I spun around on the freeway.
Kids, be careful, man.
Be careful.
Be careful. Like,
But that was why I got new tires, because I was being careful. Aside from not actually changing the tires, like I was being extra careful, going real slow. I go, I got bad tires. It's raining, and then I was still sliding like crazy. Yeah. So that was when I said, okay, I got to get some tires.
The crazy thing. This is the lesson to be learned, and that's what I was telling the boys. They're all they come to the house and hang out and play pool and ping pong and stuff. And I was just telling them, I was like, man, listen, I know. I had a buddy that went to jail for 10 years. For a similar situation where he killed his best friend, driving crazy, best friend died and ended up getting involuntary manslaughter. Man. So that thing they don't you don't remember that when you're getting hyped up and driving down the road and having fun. So anyways, lesson learned. We have a special guest coming up in a little bit. Yeah, we had a chance to sit down with Pastor Mark and talk about how to deal with when your parents start to get a little bit older and the different situations that happen, and when you have to put them in homes and take keys away and the dynamics of the household and different things like that. It was a real good conversation. So we'll play that for you here in a little bit. But so let's just jump right into Culture Corner.
I'll give you a quick good one real quick.
Shout out to Tom McDonald and
and Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro, that's my story. Just go check it out. It's called Facts. Ben Shapiro rapping.
I should have BPM synced that with this one here.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Didn't think about that. That's good. Well, mine. This is actually a big, serious theological question I have for you about this story. Okay. So I want to know what you think about this.
Okay.
So here's the headline.
I don't know. I'm just like thinking with this.
It's really important. I want to know the answer to this. We're all going to want to know the answer.
Okay.
So the headline is British Zoo launches new plan to curb parrots' nonstop swearing.
Okay.
So there's these gray parrots in this British zoo.
Yeah.
And they just swear nonstop. F this, F that, F you.
Oh man, they go into the big ones.
Yeah, just all of them. Oh. Just the nastiest. They're just saying all nonstop. And I'm actually disappointed because the story never says like why the parrots started doing that. Because these parrots,
it's some zookeeper that's teaching them.
I guess. So, somebody had to, because these parrots they're known for being able to repeat words and simple phrases.
But some of them know how to do it like in the sentence, like they know when to use it. Like it's like when a 4-year-old does it, you're like, oh, he did that right.
And so these parrots, though, they'll once they learn a phrase, like they just know it forever, and they'll just say it whenever. And so the zoo started getting it was so bad that they had to put up signs around these parrots. It said like, hey, just so you know.
It's like 18-year and older like bird that they go look at.
Yeah, it was saying like, just so you know, these parrots say some stuff, so if you're sensitive to that, maybe move along. Like don't. And so, but it got so bad. But it was actually kind of a good thing for the zoo.
You can't even take the school kids over there. You're exactly. Just like, no, we got to skip the parrots.
So they had to say. But it became an attraction because a lot of people thought it was funny that the parrots are saying all this stuff, so they'd go there and get the parrots to cuss them out and be like, "Isn't this fun?" Just having a good time.
Taking a video of it.
But it was so much that they're trying to get the parrots to stop. So they're putting it's like 5 parrots. No, it's 8. I'm sorry, 8 of these parrots, and they're putting them with this bigger flock of like 100 parrots.
Oh no!
Well, so their hope is that the 100 parents will influence the 8 so that the 8 won't say all these swears as much. But there's also the possibility that the 8 will influence the 100.
That's exactly opposite what we tell our kids.
I know.
don't hang out with the group because you'll end up like them.
Well, so they're hoping the big group will rub
okay.
off on the small amount of parrots that are saying all these cuss words. But it might go the other way.
Which way did it go?
Well, it doesn't. They don't know. The story is saying that that's what they're trying. That's what they're about to do, and hopefully it works.
Bro, can you imagine the whole zoo
I know,
just like
it's hundreds of parrots. Yeah. That's so. The question is, though, do these parrots get to go to heaven when they die? Do they get to go, or are they condemned for all eternity because some zookeeper thought it'd be cute to teach them some bad words?
Well, I guess. Where's this at?
It's in Britain,
Britain. Okay.
England. It says
I'll
British.
have to check our list to see if we have any missionaries over there.
Okay.
Because if we do, we can send them, and then
There you go.
then at that point they can make a decision.
They can pray for the parrots.
Pray for the parrots, see if if the parrots want to make this change. But if not everybody brings them the other side, they only know,
But here's the possibility: you send those missionaries over there,
what if they
talking to
start
the
cursing?
parrots? What if the parrots influence them? They got to be some strong-willed missionary. They need to be right with God.
Really, like spiritually correct.
Because all dogs go to heaven, but I don't know about the
It
parrots.
doesn't say anything about parrots in that movie.
Especially if they're,
It's cussing.
swearing.
So what about cussing preachers?
I don't know, man. Maybe it wasn't the preacher's fault. Maybe they just heard some parrots.
Maybe it was the parrots and everybody thought it was the preacher.
Could have been. Anyway, that's my story. So there's something to think about. Do the parrots get to go to heaven? Because for sure they're going to die eventually.
I'm gonna say no.
No, you don't think the parrots would go?
I have no scripture to back that up with. but I'm gonna say
You're just going to say, nah. Are they condemned forever? Do they even have a soul? That's the, now you can
I
really
mean, if they could go,
yeah.
then no.
Okay. But it's not their fault. They don't even know what they're saying.
If they can't, who cares? But the one that taught them the bad words is going to hell for sure.
For sure. All right, so that's mine.
That's it.
So tell me about this song, man.
I don't have a song.
Well, I thought you said that was your story.
No, I don't. I didn't bring it.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah,
all right.
I didn't bring it.
Anyway, well, that's it then. We'll just cut to Pastor Mark now.
Yeah, everybody just hang tight and check this conversation out we're having with our lead pastor, Pastor Mark, here at Elam Church.
There we go.
All right, guys, we got a special guest in here, Pastor Mark Walker. He's our lead pastor here at Elam Church. And, at different times in life, you go through different seasons. And, when you're young, I always tell everybody, when you're 20, you don't know what 30 looks like. So you need a mentor in your life that's 30 so they can show you what 30 looks like. And when you're 40, you don't know what 50 like. When you're 60, you don't know what 70 looks like. So I begin a new stage in my life where
Trying to see what 100 looks like.
yes, we're getting closer and closer. We're closer there now than we are to 20. Anyways, when we're the next step in life when you have to start taking care of your parents, and I think the things that we'll probably talk about today is things that Pastor Mark, and now that I'm starting to learn some of these things, probably are some things we didn't do right, but we learned from them, and some things that we found out that we did right that actually worked, and they might work for you, they might not, but I think that, going through these next steps in life, when you have elderly parents, and it's a difficult situation because their whole life, for the last 50, 60, 70 years, they've been independent. They've been able to take care of themselves, and they've financially, physically, mentally, all those things they've done, and we've always been the kid.
Yeah.
And then at some point, roles begin to change, and how do you step into those roles with grace, with love, and still give them that freedom, that sense of being able to do the things that they always done before, but at the same time having to step in on difficult situations and take care of them almost like their parents. So I just brought Pastor Mark in here. I know that he's kind of going through a season that he had a sick father and had to work through that. Just recently lost him the last year or so, and now his mother's living there in his house under the same roof. I have my parents on the same property. Fortunately enough, they have their own space for now, which is good for them. So we're just going to kind of talk through some of these things to see if it might help some of the people out there that are going through the same things. So I guess really to start off, the ideas, of when you're starting to see your parents starting to struggle in certain ways, and kind of for you and me, it was one of those things that starting to like go over to the house and starting to like help them up after they fall. Right. You start seeing those type of things, and so you kind of see it coming, but then at some point you have to step in and help them make decisions.
Right.
How did that kind of look like for you in your situation when you begin to see, at this time it was like your dad was starting to get kind of frail and different things like that, and you were spending, sometimes more days of the week, over there helping him than you wasn't.
It's really difficult, Dave, and I think we don't want to recognize it. Maybe my dad was extremely active, always doing things. And so it's almost so gradual that it's not noticeable, because it's like, oh, you just do this, we'll help you with this. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, man, he's not been able to do this now. And so I don't know. For me, it was never a burden. It was inconvenient. To be honest with you, he never had an incident, in a good time for me. It was always when something was going on, but it's never a burden. But it was difficult. And my mom, my dad was a big man, and my mom's not a great big lady. So she would call me and we would have to go over there, and he was so proud. He did not want to help. So it was a very big learning experience for us to just really come to the place where we had to take his keys. Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't safe for him to drive. He had dementia, Parkinson's, and all those things that even though you think you're prepared, maybe there are people that are prepared. We were not. Right. And we had to learn as we went. And so, like you said, I look back and I'm so thankful that I can't say, oh, I wish we'd have done this different and that different, because we were learning. But it is so difficult. And so I would just encourage anyone dealing with this to just really, it is a time to think about it, pray about it, and maybe even do a little preparation, because unless God does something different, just about everybody has to go through this.
Right. And I think that the preparation really is important. Especially when you're starting to see a little bit decline, because like you said, it just happens all of a sudden. All of a sudden they get weak, or all of a sudden they get sick, or Lord, help us, the cancer pops up, or something tragic like that. And if you're fortunate enough, there's certain insurances out there that would help in certain ways. So the preparation, maybe doing a little bit of research of what kind of help that you can get. I know it's hard sometimes to bring strangers into your home, but really, especially if you're married and you're raising a family and those type of things, if you can find some help, because it takes a lot of time and effort, mental strain, and if you have the abilities to find that help that can help, the spouse of, if it's your mother or your father, right. That takes a lot of effort off of them, and just really encourage it, because I know, like, probably like your mom too, she thought she could do it until she couldn't, right? And just really to try to encourage them to take the help that they can get.
And that is a really difficult issue, because she wouldn't accept the help.
Right.
And the more you tried, the more she felt, or she feels like, well, what? You don't trust me. You don't, I've been taking care of my husband for 65 years and it's difficult because you do have to step in and say, well, what's best for him? And we struggled with that. My mom is a servant of servants. She takes care of everything. And so she finally came to the place that she recognized she couldn't do it anymore. And the hard part, James, is now you're not just dealing with one parent with a problem. Yeah. Now you're dealing with another, because now she's feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't do what I'm supposed to do. Am I headed the same direction? And so it really is a problem that kind of compounds for a while, and then, well, letting somebody in, that's a whole nother issue. Well, they don't do it as good as I do.
Yeah.
So I don't want them back, and so as the child, you're trying to say, but this is best. And yet they don't, for a while, they don't get, and we understand that. We need to understand that, because it is difficult to submit to the fact. How would we feel if somebody came in and said, look, man, you're not driving very good anymore, and I think it's best you hand over your keys. You ain't getting my keys.
That's the one of the big first ones, right? Is taking that independence away with their keys.
I think maybe for us that was the biggest.
Yeah.
My dad, he had such a laid back attitude, but he struggled with that for a while, and we had a couple of incidents that he would get a hold of the keys, and because he had dementia, he would take off, and we would panic, and then he'd come back like, what are y'all worried about? And but when you have to do those things, and then you're talking about your dad having to treat them like children, almost like you said.
Yeah.
It's not, you're doing what you think is best for them. And so we struggle. One of the difficult issues in that is, as you mentioned a while ago, finding, if you have the insurance and stuff, what we found is my mom and dad by no means were wealthy. By no means they made a good living. They were able to live good, but they didn't have a tremendous amount of money, but they had too much.
Yeah.
So when it came time to finding a place for my dad, the only places that were available for through insurance, through Medicare and things, I'm sorry, we couldn't put him in there.
Right.
It was, oh my goodness. And so we had to come out of pocket with that. That's something else that, people need to prepare for and think about. Do you use up all of their savings, or do you sell their house? And man, it's just so much to think about. And the problem again is, it's like, okay, tomorrow we got to make this decision.
Right.
It's not, we should have made this 5 years ago. Well, that's real nice, but we didn't. And so now we're here today.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really difficult. But I can say that if you do it as a family, you can get through it, and it can be a good experience to draw you closer to them than ever before.
Yeah, I always tell my kids and the ones around me, the worst thing to ever do is to be in a rush to buy a house or a used car. But I think even more.
Right.
Is trying to find a place for your parents to be, to put them in a home or whatever. So just that little bit of, forethought, when you're starting to see it come, just start, looking around, asking people that's been through it before, just so you don't have to get caught up in that haste. And I know it's difficult. When my grandmother went in there, they took everything that she had. She had to sign over everything, that was any value to her, to put her in, what we was the best that she could get and we could afford,
right.
But it's still not up to your expectations.
Well, one of the first places we went to, literally maybe the second or third question, do you have a house? And yeah, okay, well, exactly what you said. Well, we need to sign that over. And we're not sure at this time if it's going to be long-term care, if it's going to just be to get him well because he was dealing with some other medical issues. And so we don't know if this is going to be, forever or just a few months. So we're not signing then we need to, So there's so many major decisions that you have to make. And especially if the other spouse is still functioning properly and going along. So that's really compounds the difficulties.
And there is some, and I'm not speaking on this as a professional at all, so seek out any.
Me neither.
You can seek out all the professionals, but there's other things that you can do financially to try to move money around in different ways and houses and different things around if you do some forward thinking.
Right.
And it can really help with a lot of those situations. So, seek out your financial advisor and lawyers and different things. Have a will, a will is huge.
Talk to the lawyers and things because we didn't hit that window. We waited too long, and through it all, with the end result being God blessed us, we were able to take care of it. But and I don't know this to be fact. In fact, I'm just saying I've heard that if you know it's coming, if you can get everything out of their name so many years ahead of time, that then when time comes. Then you still have, they'll still be able to give you your inheritance and things. But we didn't do that. So I really couldn't speak to how long that is. I've heard that. But, so it's just, but there are a lot of questions. And the thing is, I was reading a scripture, and it's 1 Timothy 5:8. And I know that, people are working. People's, my kids, they all have their own lives. Thank God we're mostly all close. They have their own lives, and I understand that. I have my own life, apart from my mom and dad. But that does not exempt us from the responsibility to take care of our parents.
That's right.
We have a God-given responsibility to take care of our parents. And I think too many are pushing that responsibility off to a government that can't take care of our parents.
And doesn't really care about them.
Don't care. And they're going to put them in places that we would never put our dog in.
Right.
And yet, because we don't have time for them or we don't do these things, that's what happens. Being on the ambulance for many years with the fire department, we would make calls into these homes around the area that I worked, and it was just disheartening, so heartbreaking to see these elderly people lying in the hallway, drooling, nobody around for hours.
Yeah.
And so those are the things. So I want to read the scripture because it's very interesting to me, and it's really a challenge. 1 Timothy 5:8. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for the members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's the Bible. That's not Mark.
Yeah.
I was blessed with parents that, I think, honestly, I had the best parents in the world. And it was not hard for me to do the things that I did. It wasn't a chore. It wasn't a burden. Again, it was an inconvenience. But it wasn't hard because I cared so much for them. I loved them. But I know there are those that just struggle with that. So how do we reconcile this
Right.
with the way that the life is? Because now used to be husbands would work, wives stay home. And I know that's way, way old school. But now both members of the families are working. Everybody's doing everything they can. And now you get this sudden impact of now you got to take care of somebody who can literally not take care of themselves, can't go to the bathroom for themselves. Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to put a guilt trip. I'm just saying God holds us responsible for that.
Yeah, and both of us have been very lucky that we have wives that have just jumped right in and don't do anything for our folks. But there's a lot of them out there that are, that's a big stronghold in the relationship is how do they take care of the other one's parents? And, I didn't sign up for this type deal.
Exactly.
So that could cause a lot of friction in a relationship. So all of this comes from needs to have a lot of communication going on from the very
lot.
beginning with your spouse, with your parents. You and I had talked about moving parents in, and one of the things that really helped us is that we had all of the hard conversations up front. One of the toughest times that I ever had with my parents is like setting ground rules and all of those boundaries and all of those things. And it wasn't an ask. That was the hard part about it. It was just like, this is for us to do this. This is the way we need it on our side. And then what do you need on your side? It's not just a one-way street. And then tried to, my parents live in our back door, is right there, and they live right there, but they've never once opened our back door and just came in our house, and if they did, it wouldn't be an issue,
right?
But because that we had those things up front, they just know to have that respect, and then when things come up, you can always refer back to the conversation.
It's so important. And you helped me with that, because when my mom moved in, my mom's very active. She loves to cook, but she is actually living in the house with us. And we're very blessed. We have an upstairs. Our kids were gone, so we were able to dedicate a couple of rooms to my mom and give her plenty of living space. The thing is she's older, and she's got to go upstairs. And so you and I have talked about, whether to get an elevator later, whether to get stair help, or what to do. Right now, it's not necessary, but one of the things we had to do, like you said, is to really sit down and say, okay, you are welcome to live here. And yes, if both are not in agreement, both husband and wife are not in agreement, then you need to really be careful, because it is so different. You have now become the adult in a sense. You have to set those boundaries. I remember telling my mom, okay, if you're going to be late, you're going to call me and tell me when you're going to be home, and she looks at me laughing. I'm serious, because I'm not going to stop you from doing whatever you're going to do, but I just want to know, when the door's going to open.
Yeah, then we almost feel responsible at that point.
Right.
Like, okay, I need to know where you're at, because now Dad's gone. As the next man in the family, I'm responsible, just like the Scripture said.
Sure.
Now I'm responsible, and I hold that very dear to my heart, to make sure that I'm doing the right things biblically and physically, emotionally, spiritually for my house at this point.
One of the most difficult things that I had to do was ground my mom. And
Did you really?
No, I'm just teasing. No, it hasn't got that far yet. But it is. You've got to work together, and for me, I'm not home a lot, because I'm up here all the time, and things. Blanche, she's home. She stays home now, and so she's there with my mom. So that's got to be a good relationship, and it's not easy for her, But my mom's wonderful to work with, and she'll do things, and if you tell her, she'll, okay, well, I didn't know, or whatever. But it's just interesting to me, because I'll go home and I'll ask Blanche, what did you do today? And she said, well, I had to wash clothes, because tomorrow's your mom's day to wash clothes.
Right.
So they have their routine set up to, and again, my mom loves to cook. And so we had to say, Mom, this is Blanche's kitchen.
Right.
And it's almost like you're telling her you have to ask permission to come in and cook. And but exactly what you said, if you don't set those boundaries, then it could be a problem. And as I've told Blanche, there's nothing that I want to let come between us. And so we've got to make sure we're right so that this can be right. And it can be interesting, and it could be difficult, because my mom, she loves to cook sweets. And I love to eat sweets. But I've worked so hard to not get crazy, and always working out and things. So Blanche and I don't really eat that many sweets at home. but if it's there, I'll eat it. So we've had to, Mom, if you're going to make it, you got to take it off and do something else with it, And so it's been a learning experience, but it's been over a year and a half. And I think I think personally it's worked out really well.
What do you think the most difficult piece of that year or leading up to that year was? Not for your dad, but just the aspect of moving your mom into the house.
I don't know. And it's interesting as I thought about it, there was never a question about what are we going to do with Mom.
Right.
It was, I just assumed it, that she was going to move in with us because we had the room. My sister, and we have a great relationship. My sister, she had one of her sons living there, and so they have an extra room, but we had a whole upstairs that we weren't using. So I never thought about, should we talk about this, whatever. It was just assumed, and Blanche was right there with me. She and my mom, that was her plan. So that part wasn't difficult. Just getting used to it.
And I know at one point y'all were like, do we stay in the bigger home with the upstairs, or do you move to a one story, or how do we best fit everybody's situation? And that could be a big burden on the relationship also.
There's so many things, and that can be they can cause a little friction, and that's where exactly what you said, communication. You've got to take time to sit and talk about it, and because if you don't, it festers and it can blow up, and it's just not worth it. Mostly, there's been a few little things that Blanche and I had talked about that I didn't see coming, and really very few. But again, she's home with my mom all day, right. And my mom won't stay home much. But it's just those things. And if you don't talk about it, communicate, you can build those walls that are difficult to tear down. But I've worked, and I haven't had to work, but I've really, I guess, worked on making sure Blanche knew that she is my priority.
Right.
Whatever else comes, she is my priority. And I feel like I've done that at least, or I hope I have. So
yeah, and that doesn't just that's not just for elderly parents. Like some of your your cheer parents out there and baseball parents and all the different sports and stuff. You have to remember. I know that you want to invest in your kid's life, but you have to remember that your wife, your husband, is the number one relationship in your house.
Right.
One day. And we all know it. They're going to, as much as you give and you love and all those things, they're going to find somebody they love more than you.
Look at James. I mean, as soon as he could, he got out.
I got out of there, man.
They're going to be gone, and it's going to be y'all two left. And if you didn't nurture that relationship, so many people get divorced after their kids are gone,
right.
Because they realize that they've been sleeping next to a stranger. For all of these years, and that their true relationship was with their kids, not with their spouse.
Right. The household revolves around the kids, and we know God gives an order. It's God first. Pastor Bobby here talks about when he met his wife and how they dated and things, and he said his prayer, which I always appreciated. He said his prayer was always that he would find a woman that loved God more than she would love Bobby.
Wow.
And he said when he found Linda, he found that.
Wow.
And that's what we all should long for, to have a wife that loves God so much and more than us, because that's the order God commands. God first, then our spouse, and then our family, our kids, and then our job, and then our ministry. Yeah. And we have to keep those things in order because, as you said, it's easy not only to put the kids first, but a lot of Christians put ministry first.
Yeah.
And you get those things out of order, and your life's going to be out of order.
Yeah, especially men. Our job and our ministry will come first so many times, because we have that natural desire to provide. So
Sure.
That'll get out of control real quick. You think, hey, man, just because I'm bringing $100,000 home a year, then that's enough, No, they need you to love them. They need you to show attention and all those things. And then you add ministry on top of that. That takes so much time. So very good. So let's go back to something that I haven't experienced yet. But, you talked about taking the keys away from your dad. I haven't experienced that yet, but man, Dad, I hope you ain't listening because you cannot drive anymore. and he knows, like, if I go with it, I'm driving. But he still won't let my mom drive or my sister drive or even my wife drive. He's just, that independence is still having the keys. So one of these days I'm gonna have that. But like, I know like what the difficult situation is that, okay, you finally find a place that you have to put a loved one. Man, talk about a little bit like the hardships of, okay, not just finding a good place, but making sure they're being able to be taken care of right there. Because like you hit on it a little bit, is they'll never do what you would do and as good as you would do it.
Right. Well, for us, the taking the keys away, actually, it wasn't really, really hard. It was difficult. But my dad had an incident where he got lost. Actually, he came to church, and he was just driving across the street to go to Sunday school, and he ended up in Deer Park. And he called me, and it just happened to be in between services. He said, "Mark, I'm lost. I don't know where I'm at." And I said, "What's around you?" And I figured out where he was at, and I went and got him. And he was in his right mind enough to say, "You know what? I don't think I need to be driving anymore." It scared him.
Yeah.
And I think he drove a little bit after that, but it really, I guess that was a blessing for us, because I can't imagine telling my mom right now, you're not going to be able to drive anymore.
Right.
I'd be afraid of what she'd do.
You might get grounded.
Yeah, I used to, my mom and dad weren't afraid to spank, and so it might be, I might hear those belts popping again. But so that part of it really wasn't that terrible. It was difficult, but and then we got rid of his car, and so he was content to let my mom drive and do those things. Going to the facility that we chose, it was nice. It was clean. For us, really, the biggest blessing was it was within a 5-minute radius from my house and my sister's house, and it literally was across the street from my daughter's house. So we could be there. I would tell anybody who's having to put a loved one in a facility that the care they give is based on your appearance or your being there. What we found out is the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. We were there every day. And that comes down to we had a schedule. We said, okay, you're going to go this time. My mom would go every day. But my sister and I, we're working, we're doing things. So we would say, okay, you go here, I'll be here. And so we made sure that every day somebody was there, and also at different times. And we had a great working relationship with the owner. They knew us. Of course, my sister, I love her to death, but she is the squeaky wheel. And she will let you know
when it's time to grease it.
She will let you know. I'm not that way, and I'm thankful to God she was, because when we first started, there were some things that we were like, really? They don't change him? They don't do these things? And she walks in, and man, things are happening. So you don't want to be rude to where they mistreat them or anything, but I believe it's so important that they know that you're going to come, because I think we saw the evidence of it in the other rooms where people never came, and I don't know what kind of care those people got.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, and this was a nice place, and I was very pleased with it. I felt like they treated my dad good. But we also put a camera up in the room.
That's what I was about to ask you. With the different types of technology, what are some of the things that you guys was able to use?
It's amazing, very inexpensive. A little camera, and we told them it's legal, and we told them we were doing it, and we put him up because he had a tendency to try to get out of bed and would fall, and so my mom could look on her phone anytime and literally talk to him as well. If he's getting restless, she could tell him, "Hey, we're watching, we're here, calm down."
Good.
And just hearing her voice, he would have those moments. He had what they call sundowners, and for those that know about it, it's really unbelievable, because literally when the sun goes down, he would go back to other places. He never ever forgot who we were, because I hear horror stories to me about people that would walk in and it was their mother, and they're saying, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And that would have just really broke my heart, which was already hard. But he never did that. But he would always talk about where he grew up, having to go to work. Can you bring my work clothes? Can you, and all those kind of things. But my mom was able to watch him, and at night she'd call down there. If he was out of bed, she'd call, and they'd have to go down, put him back in bed and things. So there's things you can do in the facility to make sure they're getting treated well.
That gave kind of peace on both sides, right? For your
Right.
mom and him.
Oh, yeah.
That way your mom felt like, okay, she could go ahead and go to bed tonight. He's already asleep. She could, rest a little bit easier because he was asleep at that point too.
Right.
So,
And it still is. It was hard for her to sleep a lot. And again, she's going down there every day. In fact, we worked with her to say, take a day off. Go shopping, go do other things. And let me just say this. To me, this is so important. You do what you can do. Do not let other people put guilt trips on you about the care you're giving. Now, if you're not doing anything, shame on you.
Right.
But if you're doing the best you can do, that's all you can do. And it was hard enough to put him in a facility. My mom could not take care of him anymore. I couldn't be there all the time. My sister couldn't be there all the time. So we wanted the best care for him. So we put him in this facility, and I had people tell me, I can't believe you did that.
yeah.
I can't believe you, and I'm thinking, you don't have parents like this. You don't know.
Yeah.
And so I just made my mind up, and I can say today, I don't have no regrets. I can say that because I did what I could do, and I know my mom did all she could do, and my sister did all she could do. My kids joined in, did what they could do. And so, you know what? People can have their opinions. They can keep them to themselves as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But if you do what you can do, that's all you can do.
Yeah. But, we talked about it, family's a team sport. We all have to kick in no matter what generation from the family you're in. When you go through something like that, you need everybody to do a little bit. And then if everybody does a little bit, it goes a long ways.
It goes a long ways.
Yeah. So there was some other technology too. Didn't y'all have some type of video conferencing iPad or something that y'all gave to him or something?
We
so
did. We gave him, I couldn't tell you what it is. Not an iPad, but it was something that we could talk to him, do like the FaceTime and things. And so, and they have technology too that's there that alerts you. They put a pressure sensor in the bed to where they can tell if he gets up, and it sends an alarm to them to say, hey, he's up. Because, in those homes, I will say, what we found out is you can't leave anything there that you want to keep.
Yeah.
Because we bought it, my son bought my dad a brand new walker because he was tall. So we got one that was taller. And after about a week, we came in, and the walker wasn't anywhere around.
A raggedy one, huh?
Yeah, and it was the original kind with a tennis ball underneath the front, and it's like, where'd the walker go? And they said, well, we couldn't find it. And so after about 2 or 3 days, the walker showed back up. And they found it in another lady's room. She had just seen it, liked it, and took it. And so it's just those things that happen. So
there were old ladies in there.
Yeah,
the old ladies, they were
teach your dad to stand up for
Oh,
himself.
they hit on the old man too.
They did. It was crazy. And when you have video, you see a lot of stuff. It's like, oh my gosh,
Miss Mary's like, that's my husband. You better get out of that room.
I like an old lady with nothing to lose. They're fun. They're fun.
Like, I'm coming.
My favorite people to talk to at work, or the favorite guests to serve, is really old people, but their brain is still sharp.
Yeah.
And they got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And they just do whatever
Say
they want.
and
They'll
do
say whatever
whatever.
they want. And
they
they know
know
how to
that.
be really respectful and what's the word? Like cordial. Like they know how to play the game, right? But they also will just say something crazy just because they can, and they don't care. And I love it. Those are the most fun
It's
people
fun
to be
because
around.
there's a man here that we all know and love, and he'll say stuff, and his response is, "Hey, I'm old."
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
I'm
saying
old.
that.
So,
old.
I had this old guy come in. He was serving this girl. She was saying, "You'll never believe what just happened to me," and she was serving some old guy, And the guy said something like, "Hey, so we can order anything on the menu?" And she's like, "Yeah, you can order anything on the menu." And so he put the menu on the ground and goes, "Will you stand on that menu for me?" and like looking at his friends like, "Am I right, fellas?" It is a stupid joke, but I was just like, I just love it. Like, he knows, he's like, what are you going to do? I'm just being silly.
I'm 100 years old. What are you going to tell me?
Yeah, I'm not going to actually do anything. We made a silly joke. Those kind of people, those are my favorite.
Yeah, those are good. And I think this next one I want to ask you, I was going to ask you earlier before we got here, but it's probably a pretty standard practice. When you first go, they ask you, hey, just give us a week or so before you start visiting. And I know, like, this is like one of the hardest decisions you're having to make, and then they ask you not to visit. Talk about that a little bit in the difficult situation, especially for your mom having to stay away, and she's been his caregiver for 50 years or whatever it may be.
65 years they were married. That was, and we didn't do very well with that at first. We were there every day for about the first week, and he would beg us, and that was the hardest thing. He would beg us to take him home. He just wanted to be home, and he would call me, and I don't know if it's whatever, people can think whatever, but I still have his calls on my phone.
Oh, that's awesome.
And but he would call, Mark, come get me. We got to go to work tomorrow, and all. And finally, the lady that owned it, she said, look, please give us a week to get him situated, and we'll take the phone out, take his phone, and that way you can have a break. And just, and so I think, honestly, we only gave about 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
But it did make a difference. He finally came to the place where he knew, and it's kind of sad, too, because you could see that almost defeated attitude. Like, before it's like, get me out of here, come get me. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm here.
This is my new life.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
And so that was difficult. I think it's actually a good thing. Looking back on it, we probably should have done that and let him get accustomed. But he was my mom had made him so dependent on her. That was the other thing. In that culture, we have to understand it's so different. My mom and dad being married 65 years, it was the fact that he went to work and she worked, but yet she took care of him. And when I say took care of him, I mean, he's on the couch, get me a sandwich, okay. And people today, the women of today would like, I can't believe you, but that's the way it was. And she treats me the same way today.
Yeah.
I'll be sitting in there, hey, I'm going to make me a sandwich. You want to say, and that was that culture.
Yeah. And she's got a servant's heart like no other.
She is, yes. And so because he was so dependent, I don't know if I don't think you'd want to visualize this, but one day I went over there for breakfast, and she was cutting up his food. He could cut his food up, but she's got to cut his food up. And I said, Dad, why don't you just let her feed you too? And he opened his mouth like, okay. And I'm thinking, I said, you are so spoiled. And he just gave that little grin like, yeah.
That's my parents. My mom will complain about something. I'm like, no.
Right.
You created that monster, and now you don't like it. You know, it's all fun and games until they start taking advantage of it. That's good. And I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but like if you could just and I appreciate it. I know that this might be some of the most that you've talked about this, and so it's difficult. But if you could just leave the people with something on the whole situation that you went through that you might think could really help them, just leave them with something right now.
I think it's for one thing, we only had my dad in the facility for about 7 months. And I think about some of the people I know that have loved ones in there for years. I don't know if I could say, but Brother Dale.
Yeah.
Man, just such an inspiration to me. I'm not sure exactly how many years. I think it was 6 to 8 years.
It is a long time.
That he is visiting his wife every day. He was in a situation where, if I'm not mistaken, she didn't even know who he was towards the end. And yet he never gave up on her.
Yeah.
And there's something to that because I've mentioned it a couple of times. about regret. And I didn't want to have everything said and done and then now look back and go, man, I wish I would have done this. Man, I should have done that. It wasn't, and Brother Dale gave me the inspiration because I know him enough to know he doesn't have any regrets. He gave up his retirement. He just retired and all that. And I shouldn't even be talking about him like this, but he's just such an inspiration to me. So that when I went in this place, or when we went in this situation, I remembered that, and I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I wanted to honor my dad, and that's another thing. I wanted to honor my dad. I didn't, with the way that I treated him. Again, I was so blessed. For years, me and my dad were just best friends, and for forever, and so it was real easy to honor him. But I would just say, it's going to cost you. It's going to be difficult. But in the end, if you'll do it, because I always look back and I teasingly say, I'm going to have a long life on this earth. Because my Bible says that honor your mother and father so that your days on this life will be long.
Yeah.
And I'm nobody. But it was easy for me to honor them because they're so loving and caring. But I did. And so I'm going to be around a while.
That's good. It's good. Live with no regret, right?
No regret.
On that, don't go out there and just go buck wild in this world. But when it comes to your parents, man, do what you can do.
And that's the key. I watched this show, and it was something saying, I'm not getting it right, but it really hit home with me. It was something to the effect of this mom told her son, hey, you cannot solve all the problems of the world, but you can solve some.
Yeah.
And so just do what you can do.
Yeah.
And don't let other people put that guilt trip on you about, because that's going to come back to get them.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have a situation too, and then they're going to find out this isn't as easy as you might think.
Yeah. It's like these couples giving parent advice with no kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's true.
I think one of the things, and we'll just leave with this, one thing that I've just recently learned was instead of telling or demanding, find a way to ask for you. When my parents wanted to drive across the United States, and I knew that they weren't going to get out of town before they got lost, and I was telling them, you do this, do this, do this. And he wouldn't listen to me, and then I was talking to my guy, and he said, tell him to do it for you, Dad, do this for me. So we're not. And then when I told him that, he says, okay. But when I was telling them, you need to do this, and that's not the right thing. And, it's just like, as a man, you're like, you ain't gonna tell me what to do. Especially my dad. My dad's a man's man. He's always been a man's man. You're not gonna tell him what to do, and you almost have to use that backwards, stuff on him. Tell him what you don't want him to do, or tell him what you don't want him to do, so he'll do what you want him to do.
And it's interesting
reverse
you
psychology.
say that because that my mom would call me. I can't get your dad to do this. Get over here, and if I told him to do it, or same thing, if I asked him to do it, he would do it.
Yeah.
Or most of the time, not all the time.
Yeah.
But most of the time, he would do what I asked him to do.
Yeah.
Whereas my mom would ask him, and he would just, But if she'd call me, I'd go over there and say, Dad, we need to do this.
Yeah.
And he would go ahead and do it.
My mom said I'm the only one my dad listens to also. So, just work that into your favor,
Right.
just find the reason, the one guy that makes reason with that parent, and y'all talk about it as a family, and then let them be the voice of the family, and that'll make things a lot easier. But just try not to demand, talk to them with respect, even though when they're being difficult, because it gets difficult, especially when they don't remember certain things. At times, it can be very frustrating for them.
Frustrating.
I think the doctor even told you one time, I try to remember all this stuff because I know I'm going to, hopefully I don't end up there one day, but in case, but when they're going on those things, try not to always correct them out of it.
Just go with
it, because it gets them even more frustrated when you're telling them that's not how it was and those things. So
it does. And it's not hard. It's just oh, really? And wow, I forgot about that, or I didn't, and they stay calm and they get through it.
Yeah,
So
very good. Well, Pastor, thanks. Like I said, I know it's not always easy talking about these things in life, but I think that sometimes when we do talk about them, it's healing too.
It is. It's freeing, and I'd like to, if you wouldn't mind, if I could just pray for those. Maybe if there's somebody listening that's making these decisions, having to make this choice, and they're really struggling. I didn't really speak about it hardly at all, but my faith is and it wasn't just my faith; it was a family faith that really got us through this. We could lean on each other, but more than that, we truly could lean on the Lord. And I'm telling you, there were days when it's like I don't know what to do. I'm crying out to the Lord, and things would work out. And so I would just encourage everybody. But let me just pray. Just take a minute. Father, in the name of Jesus, Lord, first of all, I thank you for the opportunity we have to honor our parents. And I know it's not just only parents, but maybe other loved ones in our life, as siblings, children, Lord God, that we have to maybe deal with this in. And so first and foremost, Lord, give us the wisdom we need to make the right choices, the right decisions. Lord God, your word says we have not because we ask not. So if there's anyone that's hearing this, that's struggling, trying to make that decision, trying to decide what's best, what they're going to do, I pray that they would just always do what's best for their loved one. And that's the most important. And there is sacrifice involved. There is a cost. And Lord, it's worth it at the end of it all to be able to know that we did all we could do. And you honor that. I believe you honor that. So Lord, I pray for comfort and peace as they make these decisions. And I pray they would find the exactly right place to put their loved ones so that they could be well. And Lord, maybe they're bringing them home and they need the peace and the patience to deal with that. And I pray for husbands and wives that are going through this. And Lord, let this, as I feel like it did for me and my wife, Lord, let it bring them closer together than ever before, that they'll be on the same page, that they'd be willing to sit down, as Pastor David said, and have the hard conversations so that there's boundaries and there's things set up so that there's nothing in question. And we just thank you for the opportunity to be able to take care of our parents. So thank you, Lord, for those that are listening. Thank you for just being faithful and always being able to depend on you. And Lord, we just thank you for every day with those that we love. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, guys, thanks for listening, and we love you.
This is The Refuge Project.